It's we'll have to see.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we got this guy coming up, Emilio. We got Mr. Kenny Clark, right? Matt Schneider tweeted out, Kenny Clark tells Packers reporters on a Zoom call that Rashawn Gary is getting his jersey postgame. Kobe Wooden reached out to Kenny first and was like, "Hey, I want your jersey." And then Kenny kind of sounds like he put it to bed. He said Rashawn Gary's getting it. And I don't know if it was tongue in cheek or not, but it's so cool that the defensive line room is fighting over who gets Kenny's jersey. I mean, that's how much he means to him. And you guys know with Rashawn Gary and him, they played together for a very, very long time. They've been kind of the leaders on this defense for quite some time as well. I thought that was cool that he mentioned RG, obviously leading the league in sacks and having another Pro Bowl caliber year here for number 52.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure we talked about that when he first went over. It was like, yeah, they were going to be fighting over who gets a jersey. But yeah, you got to trust the man that was always there with you. And I think that'll be a nice swap, right? That'll be one they're going to get on camera, get them signed, bring the Sharpie out there, both of them sign it real quick, get the picture. It'll be a battle going against Kenny, man. I'm glad that he's all right. I'm glad that ankle's okay, and he'll be out there.
Yeah, definitely. Nick McSwain said, I miss Kenny. 2-0 for this says Kenny's jersey swap is rigged. There you go.
You know.
Joe says Kenny is an OG to us. Amen to that, man. Not so cool says Kenny Clark was one of my favorite players on the pack. Man, he just played the game the right way, and a leader, one of those quiet leaders, which I think those go a long way, man. You know my saying that typically the loudest person in the room has the least amount to say. And Kenny was one of those guys. You could tell when he spoke up, everybody shut up and listened. Yeah. Now, his game was declining, obviously. That's been well documented, well talked about. I was very vocal saying I didn't think they should give him that last contract they did. But you can understand why they did, because he was such a leader and loved in that locker room, and he was still playing at a fairly high level. I would say above average to good level, right? But they, that was one of those situations they overpaid for good. He wasn't great since they gave him the contract. But yeah, Kenny was the man, dude. Again, no slander on Kenny Clark will be tolerated.
He was the best guy around.
All right, man, you ready to get into a little game planning here, man? Just dive into some of the expanded numbers here against the Cowboys. I'm excited about this. And listen, there may be some mistakes in here. We'll call them out as we find them. I put this together fairly early. Had a little AI help me with it as well in terms of just structure and everything. And it looked clean originally, and now you're going to notice all kinds of screen grabs, all kinds of pictures and everything in there where I was just like, you know what, this would be a good point to implement that. So we'll dive into it here. On the surface, Amelia, is there anything you want to say about the Packers-Cowboys matchup where you kind of look at and go, and maybe your opinion will change by the end of it. Maybe your opinion will be proven, and something I put in the game plan we will change by the end of the show. What on the surface do you think should be the offensive approach and the defensive approach? Just a real quick version of it.
I think we got to be able – I mean, we need to be able to run it, but I think we're going to lean on throwing the ball to open up the run this game and just force them. They don't have a good pass rush. I think they can kind of slow down the run game. And then, yeah, Matt needs to call a decent game and Jordan needs to spin it. I really do think.
Yeah. All right, so here we go, guys. The game plan, Week 4, Packers at the Cowboys. You can find this over on our Patreon group. Thanks to everyone who's a Patreon member and supporting the show at patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. All right, let's get into it. To defeat the Cowboys, the Packers should execute a game plan focused on their strengths, including a versatile offense and a suffocating pass rush led by former Cowboys star Micah Parsons while exploiting Dallas's injury-plagued offense. The Cowboys are missing key players, most notably star receiver CeeDee Lamb, who in my opinion probably would have been a Tuesday player, and he's not on the field. That's huge, which has severely impacted their offense. Here's a detailed game plan for the Packers to secure a victory. Let's start with the offensive game plan first. It just made us look like Coach LaFleur been on that bench press a little bit, been on hitting that curl rack a little bit.
After that pec healed, I think he just said, screw it. Give me the 225. I'm just going to rep it every day.
Absolutely. All right, offensive game plan. The Packers should adopt a balanced offensive attack that keeps Cowboys defense guessing and creates favorable matchups. It's real easy to look at their pass defense, which, guys, it's almost dead last in the league at a .40 EPA per drop back. It's easy to look at that and go, well, let's just go wing it all over the yard. I think that's the worst thing you could do. I think Jordan will have big numbers. Don't get me wrong. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities to exploit that pass defense for the Dallas Cowboys. But like you said right off the top, Emilio, I want to see them press into the run a little bit. Let's talk about what they run on defense, okay? So 2% cover one man, 1% cover zero man. So they're only playing 3% man coverage. This is how Matt Eberflus operates. We talked about it earlier in the week. He is a very, very, very zone heavy defensive style coach. You guys know that's what he showed when he was in Indianapolis before he got the head coaching job with Chicago. He was the defensive coordinator for the Colts. He gets the head coaching job with the Bears. They stayed zone heavy. Now he's with the Cowboys, and they're zone heavy as well. So what kind of zone are they running? 43% of the time, Emilio, they're playing cover 3 zone. 26% of the time they're in cover 2. They're in cover 4, 14% of the time. They're in cover 6, 6% of the time. This is a bend and pray to sweet baby Jesus you don't break top defense, right? So if you're playing a lot of cover 3, now pre-snap, are they showing shell or not? I don't have the answer to that. Maybe somebody in the chat does. When I say shell, meaning they're showing too high and they rotate to single high middle field close. But when you're playing a cover 3 or cover 4, that should deter you from throwing down the field, which tells me attack short to mid-range in the passing game. Don't get suckered in to trying to take a bunch of deep shots and throwing into the teeth of a defense when it comes to a cover 3 zone or even a cover. If they're in a cover 2 zone, it's a true 2 and not a Tampa 2. You might want to attack the seam with Tucker Kraft. You could see that out of 11 or 12 personnel. And then, of course, if they start throwing in a little bit of a hybrid, they don't show any 6% cover 6 and then cover 4 at 14%. So you probably see some crossers involved there as well, but minimal man covers. Does that surprise you at all?
3% is crazy. It's one of two things: either you don't trust your guys, or you just can't do it. It's tough because they've had issues with that, and then on top of that, if you're running man and you can't get pressure, you're even more screwed. I mean, you get somebody break loose, no one's looking at them. You get past your one guy, it's over. So that's kind of how I always play is Ben, keep it in front of you and stuff like that. But they're also not, when they're in these zones, they're not bringing pressure. They're 4 down, stay in 2. You got 7 in coverage, all that stuff. You're going to find windows. You're going to be able to kind of to drop it in there, especially if the O-line holds up, dump it down, get your 10, whatever. There's going to be some options here. But like you said, we don't need Jordan to be forcing it down the field, because if you're sitting in that 3 or 4, nothing's going to be there over the top. They're just going to match and you'll be done with it. But yeah, you do need to kind of stretch them to maybe open up a dig underneath or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Number 1 on offense, establish the run early. Okay. Run defense, yards per carry allowed. Green Bay is 4th in the league, actually tied for 3rd in the league at only 3.2 yards per carry allowed. Dallas is tied for 7th. At 3.7 yards per carry. So they're a pretty solid run defense, right? And you guys know we love to laugh at Jerry Jones, but this is what he said. When he traded Micah, he went for Kenny because he thought, hey, we can get us another run stuffer in the middle, and that'll help our run defense. We want to be able to stop the run first and foremost. It seems to have worked in that regard. The problem is nothing else is working on defense, right? So this is what I'm saying. You look at this and go, they're a top 10 run defense. Maybe we just want to throw it all over the yard. You still want to establish a run, and that's why I think don't run right at those defensive tackles. Let's go BC outside, right? Yeah. Let's maybe run a little power look, that type of thing. And don't be afraid. Here's the other thing we haven't done much of is throwing screen passes. You can simulate the run game with some halfback slips. I'd like to see a little bit more of that with Josh Jacobs as well.
Yeah, and you can do that with Josh Jacobs. You can flip it over to Tuck. On a little tight end screen, but you're going up against a defense that is leaning on stopping the run, keeping everything in front of you. You need to be able to kind of work it through there. If we can get 4 yards of carry, I'll be happy. We just haven't even been able to get that. Josh Jacobs still needs to break out. And like he was saying in his interview, it's going to take 3 or 4 weeks for the run game to kind of get going normally in a season. This is coming on week 4, so I hope that we find whatever it is. If we can get Josh over 100 yards, I'll feel a lot better about where the team's heading. And then you can start, hey, we'll get ahead to a little bit of a lead, kind of lean on the run a little bit more, and then everyone will be happy. Because also running the ball keeps the lineman happy, right? How often do they? I mean, yeah, we're good at pass blocking. They want to, kick back, but O linemen like to run block. They want to go downhill. They want to just crush the dude in front of them. So you can't always be dropping back.
Yeah, you ask any offensive lineman, they're like, man, when you're pass blocking, you're just getting your ass kicked. You're holding on for dear life. You're reacting. You're trying to absorb their punishment, right? When they call a run play, it's all right. Here's my turn now.
Yep.
You imagine looking across, you're on a pass happy team, and you're looking across every snap and knowing that defender's just teeing off on you. You finally get an 0-1 trap or something. It's like, all right, buddy. Yeah, you're going to feel me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm coming downhill.
Exactly. Jen Wright seems to be on board there with the screen passes. I don't know, man. I feel like we don't utilize it enough. I really do. So utilize Josh Jacobs to control the clock. A strong rushing attack with Josh Jacobs will take pressure off quarterback Jordan Love and prevent the Cowboys' struggling defense from keying in on the pass. The Packers have run the fewest plays per game in the NFL this season, so establishing a methodical rushing offense will be critical. Again, you want to be able to control that clock a little bit too, right? You want to get up early, put the pressure on the Cowboys where they feel like they've got to wing it all around the yard. And then maybe you can have one of those, +2, +3 turnover differential days, which we typically take the ball away from Dak Prescott pretty effectively when we play him. Now, it's talking about attacking the linebackers. Focus on runs to the outside to isolate the Cowboys linebackers and avoid their interior pass rush. Look at their linebackers, Emilio. This is their PFF grades. Jack Sanborn, 52.7. You got Maurice Laufau, I think so you said, 42.6. You've got Damon Clark, 41.8. And then Kenneth Murray Jr., 37.9. So Kenneth Murray Jr. has got the most snaps for them, and he's got the lowest grade of 37.9. Second most snaps is Jack Sanborn at 151 snaps at a 52.7. That's the weak spot. One of the weak spots of this defense is definitely that linebacking core. That's why I'm saying let's stretch that thing a little bit and then work off boot action, get those guys moving horizontally, and then create 2 or 3 throwing windows for Jordan Love in the midline there.
Yeah, because it's not like their coverage grade is great either. Their run defense is coming from up front. The linebacker, if we can get to the second level, that's where you would want Belton in there, right? Maybe wash down a whole side of the line. Then you slip the running back, you slip Josh out to the outside, make a man miss in space, and you're off to the races, or you got a shoulder down on a safety. But yeah, that's I think we do need to attack them.
Yeah, their best pass defending linebacker of this crew is Damon Clark at an 85.4 passer rating when targeted. Kenneth Murray Jr., who's got the most snaps for them, a 105.7 passer rating when targeted. Jack Sanborn, 118.8 passer rating when targeted. So I'm telling you, man, for me, mesh concepts, drive concepts, things to attack the middle of the field, maybe a little Texas with, if you let's say you come out in the 12 personnel, right? And you force them into their base, and you just run 2 skinny posts out of the tight ends down the seam and a Texas route on the backside there with Josh Jacobs. Yep. You get those linebackers stretched vertically a little bit in that cover 3 zone, knowing if you got a single high safety, then one of those tight ends is going to be running free down the seam. That's where the backers will play a little match coverage and follow them out. That's going to open up that little Texas, that angle route, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah.
Little relief valve, love the Texas. And, yeah, you got to be able to work it vertically and find those open spots. It's a blade of grass never scored, but a blade of grass can get you open. So that's where you need to be.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Moving along. Number 2, attack the secondary. Passing defense, yards per pass attempt allowed here. Dallas, guys, 9.4 yards per pass attempt allowed. That is worst in the league. All right, New England is the closest one to them, and they're at 8.6. So, again, you want to establish the run. But I don't know what Jordan Love's over-under is, but boy, oh boy, this might be the week to take him in fantasy or maybe put a little cash on that over, unless it's crazy inflated, right? But, again, they've got one of the worst pass defenses in the entire league here, man.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Bad pass defense and a real bad pass rush. So it's a recipe for them to have a problem. You just got to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah. And if you dive a little deeper here, exploit the Cowboys pass defense. Dallas' secondary has allowed a 125.3 quarterback rating. That's 31st in the NFL through week 3 and a 73.9% completion rate. Jordan Love should be able to exploit these favorable matchups. When you look at their DBs, okay, cornerback, Reddy Stewart. I don't have the snap, so I apologize for that, but a 65.8. Then you got Malik Hooker at safety, 57.3. Kyer Elam, cornerback, 54.7. Deron Bland, 52.9. Donovan Wilson, the other safety, 52.7. Trayvon Diggs, 50.8. And then you got Bridges, 47.9. CJ Gooden doesn't have a grade yet. Now, when you look at the passer rating when targeted, Donovan Wilson, passer rating when targeted, is only a 16.7. Okay, so that's why it's important to look at PFF, but also look at other analytics and then watch the tape as well. So obviously, Donovan Wilson, not as bad as his PFF grade would suggest, in my opinion. However, when you move on to Deron Bland, it goes from a 16.7 to an 89.6. That's a big drop off there. Roddy Stewart, 91.4. Kyer Elam, 136.3. Malik Hooker, 158.3 for Malik Hooker. He's been targeted 6 times. There's been 5 receptions, 155 yards allowed, and 2 touchdowns. So don't be afraid to target Malik Hooker. It's crazy, too, because at one point in the league, he was considered a decent safety. Pretty wild.
Yep, and Donovan Wilson looks like down there on the pro was 178 snaps, so he's in all the time. Kyer Elam's in 184 snaps, and Hooker's in for 180. So those guys are in the game basically the whole time. Something that you just kind of want to keep an eye out for. You got to know your matchups, who you're lined up across. Who do you think you can best? Who's good against? Like when you're stacking that guy, who's going to be able to turn the corner, things like that. So and again, remember, we're not going to get a lot of man, so our man beaters aren't exactly going to be what we need to lean on. We need to kind of get to space, get to spots, run comebacks, curl, drive concepts, like you said, find the windows in the zone rather than try to beat the guy across from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Chuck Jaggers with the super chat. Thank you so much, Chuck. He said, Dallas let radio get over 30. We better score 60. Appreciate that super chat, man. And as H.E. Soder pointed out, and 2 of them, those quarterbacks were Wilson and Williams. So think about that, right? Caleb Williams.
That's that point. Yeah, we gotta make it happen on this defense because look what they let Wilson and Williams do. The other point is how long did they? I mean, they kind of held Hurts. That was a game. That was a battle between Cowboys Eagles. So there's also that they can show up too. It's not like they don't get paid. So I know that we're talking about cooking them in the secondary and stuff. We just got to be careful, not get too far over the skis. And I hope Matt's kind of just reeling them in. I'm sure he's salivating about what can happen, but. Let's make sure we don't get too far ahead of ourselves.
Absolutely. So again, let's exploit that pass defense, target the young receiving cores, utilize the depth and versatility of the receiving core, including Romeo Dobbs, obviously going to be in your X, Matthew Golden at the Z, Dontavion Wicks. I would put him in more of that F role, right? More of that versatile look, the flex, if you will, right, in Matt LaFleur's offense. Run quick, timing-based routes and take shots downfield when the opportunity arises. So maybe you can get a concept where you can have like a post, right? Like a double post concept and really put stress on Malik Hooker if he's playing post safety and try to find those windows down the field. That's how you attack cover 3 if you're going to throw deep, right? A lot of people think, all right, let's just try to get behind the defense and chuck it deep. No, you want to show outside leverage, outside attack, and then bend it back in on a post. If you run a double post and get inside leverage on both the post safety and that outside corner, either side of the field you want to attack, and then have a drive concept on the other side of a 2x2 set underneath, you're giving Jordan Love options. If they bite on the outside move, and you've got inside leverage on the post, hammer that thing in there with no hesitation. If not, you've got time to come back to your check down on a drive concept with, say, a drag or a dig, something like that, maybe a shallow cross, that type of thing.
Right. Even if you ran double post out of trips, Clay, you got your 2 outside guys, you got a double post with the 2 outside guys, then that inside trips guy maybe runs a wheel. So if the corners are going with him, they got to match at some point. That wheel might be open late or that post might be open early. If not, you got maybe a curl on the backside, come back on the backside, a little flare route for your back. You got to be able to kind of get them in the most advantageous spots.
Yeah, and looking at the tendencies earlier, and I didn't add this screen grab into the game plan here, but I know that they're one of the worst defenses in the league at covering a 3-by-1 set. Okay. And when I
Love
say
that.
3-by-1, notice I didn't say 1-by-3, specifically 3-by-1. So 3 targets on the left side. That can be Trey with a tight end attached, or
Yep.
it can be just, you could go nub right with 3 wide receivers to the left. But Trey left seems to be their weakness. I'm telling you, man, you throw speed to 3 against a cover 3 defense, and you work a slot cross with a dagger concept all in 1 out of 3 targets. That's how you can really put stress on a cover 3 defense. Another thing, too, use tight ends in the middle of the field. Stay balanced in the passing attack by using tight ends Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft on play action to test the intermediate zone. So if you do come out in a 12 personnel, don't be afraid to come out in a 12 personnel, a 12 tray look out of the ace under center, like everybody was saying in the chat earlier, and then run out a boot action and have a drive concept like that with Musgrave and Kraft and attack those tight ends once you get them to pull up. And then all of a sudden you've got Musgrave speed, Kraft speed, and size beating them to the punch. So imagine a Trey right look out of ace with 12 personnel. So you've got Romeo Dobbs on the left, okay? And then you're going to have Tucker Kraft attached at the Y. You'll have Musgrave at the U playing off, and then Matthew Golden at the Z, okay? Now imagine running a stretch play to the strong side, show that a couple times, and then you go boot weak where you'll show the stretch, boot off, and then you got Musgrave on a drag, and then you'll have Tucker Kraft on somewhat of a climb. Maybe have you could even, if you don't feel comfortable throwing deep, throwing into the teeth of a cover 3 defense on a streak on the outside with whether it's Romeo or if you want to go to the Z side with Matthew Golden, you can have them run that deep hitch, that deep comeback, right?
Yep.
So you've got 3 options for Love. As soon as he comes out of that break, you get those linebackers displaced on that stretch run, and then be able to fire underneath. It's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. So that's what I'm talking about in attacking these linebackers. And when you look at our tight ends, man, Luke Musgrave, 70.8, Tucker Kraft, 68.3, even John Fitzpatrick getting in on the action, 65.4. All 3 of our tight ends, and Musgrave doesn't have enough snaps yet to be able to throw up the ranking, but all 3 tight ends, Emilio, are ranked inside the top 32 tight ends in the league. What's that tell you? All 3 are starting caliber tight ends according to PFF's grading system as it sits in week 3 or week 4, going into week 4, I should say.
Love that. We were hoping a lot for Musgrave this year coming back off the injury, and Fitzpatrick's been kind of doing his own deal in there. I'm glad that he made the team. He's worked hard. He's a guy. He's a dog that always just kind of grinds it out. And then Tucker, if you heard his presser, he was saying, I think our offense would be in its best shape if I touch the ball every drive. I just love that mentality. Might be a little cocky or whatever, but hey, if you kind of have that feeling, we already knew that Tucker was going to be a dog. If he has that chip, that swag, whatever, you got to bring it, right? You can't just kind of talk and not walk it. I think he does the walking, but I love that he was, all for, hey, we want this offense to succeed. I think I got to touch it. So that's exciting to see.
Yeah. And then the other aspect here, just to kind of wrap up the offensive side, draw up, rollout plays for Jordan Love. We kind of talked about it. While Love's average of 20.6 pass attempts per game is lower than ideal, the Packers should not abandon the pass. Since the Packers' offensive line struggled against a much better defense in Cleveland, design plays that allow Love to be effective using quick reads and design rollouts, stretch the front 7 horizontally with B to C gap fakes with boot action. So that is your offensive game plan for attacking the Dallas Cowboys. Here's what I think we'll do, Emilio. I think we'll hold the defense until tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, so we'll dive into the defensive game plan tomorrow and unveil that as well. Let us know in the chat what you think, okay? Let us know in the chat. Fire it off. Give me maybe 1 or 2 things. Hey, here's how I would attack this defense. I know you guys have been very active in here. Obviously, while I'm reading, it's hard to keep up with everything. Let us know what you think in the chat. What's your final thoughts on how to attack this defense offensively here as we travel down to Dallas, Emilio? Anything else you want to add to that, man?
No, I think we kind of covered it. A lot of kind of work in the middle, getting your guys open. You're going to have windows to throw. You're not going up against a lot of man. You got to be prepared for that. You got to be able to, get yourself. So say they're in a cover 3, right? And everyone's kind of just sitting even, but you have trips to one side. If they're not going to man up and bring that dude over because he's got a hook curl on the single receiver side, all right, quick audible to a bubble or something. Let's play the numbers game a little bit more. And Matt, give Jordan that freedom to be able to call those. I think maybe we need just another audible here and there. If we don't have our silent count figured out, I think that's an issue. I think that Matt needs to get that taken care of. And when he was talking about just like the preparation and getting ready, I remember those days where you would literally drill for like an hour of, all right, hey, this team on the field, this team, I mean, and you're sprinting onto the sideline, sprinting off, everybody line up. You got to know when you're in for what formation, what grouping. And that's just like the little stuff. If we need to practice it at practice, I know we only have 2 hours. I'd take 20 minutes and run them on and off the field. I want to see full sprint, get into position, and go. We got 5 seconds, So it's just repetition. We got to be better on that stuff, and no pre-snaps, or else I'm gonna just lose it.
Yeah, definitely. Chris in the chat says throw a screen once in a while. Yeah, no doubt, man. And again, I'd like to see the reutilization of the RPO game a little bit more, man, out of gun sidecar. That's just me personally, because again, it stretches them horizontally. It does the same thing. Effectively, it does the same thing that you're trying to accomplish on a stretch boot, something like that, right? Is you're making the linebackers, you're creating a conflict defender there, especially in a trips left. You guys know my favorite formation that the Packers run, and they don't run it as often as I'd like to see them, is a trips left, nub right look. And the reason I love that is because the defense has got to decide, okay, if they're in a sidecar right, are we going to play to the strong side, or knowing that 80% of that run will go across the quarterback's face? So they'll probably play to the weak side. Well, guess what happens? Before the ball snapped, you come in, you could can from one run to another, throw it in a left sidecar real quick before they can react. You're out the gate on the strong side of the formation while they're playing an under defense. Right. Now, if they start to bring that extra defender in, whether it's the nickel covered in the 3, or let's say that they decide to slide a backer over because they're worried about you running to that side now you can go to the RPO game with the bubble, and you've got, whether it's Matthew Golden, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavion Wicks, whoever, right? You're going to have that +1 hat count on the smoke or the bubble screen. So would love to see more of that for sure. J. Cole says, I don't think Matt likes screen much. I would love Savion a wide receiver. Savion is built for a wide receiver screen, Jay. You're spot on there, Jay. So spot on. Yeah. Holmes MD1 says, run between the tackles, work mid-range throws, throw them out of cover 2/3, and then hit them deep repeatedly. I think he might have meant run them out of deep cover 2 or 3 and then hit them deep repeatedly. But so he's definitely on a run between the tackles team. And I think you'll see, Holmes, I think you'll see the majority of the runs be between the tackles, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I'd just like to see a little more stretch because we haven't seen it much at all so far this year. So.
And you can set up a stretch. Remember that the screen to Tucker that was a fake one way, fake the other way, drop it down the middle, like sort of tunnel. It's like you have that ability. You can kind of set that up with other plays. You can set that up with a toss, with a stretch. Bring motion in. That's the other thing is, like, if we're trying to was Kirk Bankert or whatever, I think when you're trying to get to your landmarks, if the center's waiting on this guy to get across, or on the motion, you got an orbit, yo-yo, boomerangs, whatever, zipper. I mean, there's like 100 of them. So yeah, I love all that. I love all the eye candy. We need it, but if there's a way to make it or use the eye candy not based on timing wise, not as based, obviously it's going to be somewhat based if you're running orbit, stuff like that, but just try to loosen the stress of timing that all up within a half a second.
Yeah. Coach Lynn says, I want to see the mindset of getting off the ball by the O-line. That's why I like under center. And I guarantee the O-line does too, man. Because when you're running those bubble screens, right, that we're talking about the RPO stuff, Emilio, they can't just fire off the ball because if they get caught downfield, it's ineligible downfield. So what Coach is saying here, obviously, is when you're under center, those boys, they get to really lick their chops, you know what I mean, and get down there and start.
And you can still throw a quick, smoke route or whatever, just so if you're under center, stand up, fire a thing over if the dude's 8 yards off.
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely can, man, for sure. Let's see, Chris in the chat, can you use tight end to block and then let him slip out? See, that's the other thing too, is you guys noticed at the end of that game, the Tucker Kraft play that should have set up what should have been the game-winning field goal. That's what they did, right? It was a little slip outside. It was a leak, and it worked to perfection. Jordan, I think he had a little play action off of that too, right? Yep. A little play action. It was almost like a screen pass, just throw it right over the end. And we're off, what was it, like 16, 18 yards?
Yep, like a 4-yard pass.
Yeah, right. That's stuff you got to take what they can give you. It's going to be fun, though, man. It's going to be a great game to measure this team on. because listen, I know there's a lot of people that think that they're going to just run away with it. I was listening earlier today. Tauscher is so convinced the Packers are just going to boat race them. And I'm over here going, I want to be there with you. I just can't because I've watched so much damn football. I mean, you heard me last week with Cleveland. It's like, but I do feel like, I will say this, as silly as this sounds, I feel better about this week's game than I did against Cleveland, because Cleveland's defense was just that type of defense that you could look up in the fourth quarter and go, they got us in a headlock, that type of thing. So
yeah, Baldy was on with DJ and Buck on their pod, and they were like, yeah, one of the bigger surprises of the weekend was the Packers-Browns game. Baldy goes, man, I don't know if that was a surprise, man. If you saw that defense, the way they're playing, man, that Brown defense is legit. I mean, they're the real deal. They're probably the best defense in the league type. And, we just caught them at the wrong time. We couldn't finish the game. We need to play 60 minutes. We got to play. Our penalties need to be under 10 penalties for sure. I mean, that's a given. And then, all right, let's see what we can get better at, get the run game going, get, things moving in the right direction for this offense.
Yeah, definitely. All right, just a little update on Thursday Night Football. Seattle and Arizona are still tied at 0, according to my score here. Eight minutes left in the first quarter. So, is there anything else you want to hit on, Emilio, before we wrap up, man? Anything at all?
I don't think so. No, I'll do a little digging for defense tomorrow, and I'll listen to the Cowboys pod, see if I can't find anything else out for us.
Yeah, sounds good, man. We'll be back tomorrow, guys, 6:30 p.m. Central, PTA Live. We'll finish the game plan here. Tomorrow we'll start with the defensive game plan and show you how we can try to slow down this offensive attack from the Dallas Cowboys. So in the meantime, you guys – go ahead.
Real quick, I was listening to the Insiders podcast, and they were talking, the lady that does the interviews or whatever for the TV, she said that she saw Halfley grab X and a couple other players and personally met with them in the locker room after the game. But I haven't listened to his presser, but she had said that she mentioned that she's like, I don't really see that normally often when a coach grabs just a few players and has a meeting with them at their locker. So I did want to mention that.
Nice. Appreciate that. Deadfish says, can't have your only turnover in the last 3 minutes. Amen to that, Deadfish. And I will say this, little spoiler for tomorrow, we're going to talk about turnover differential. It heavily favors the Green Bay Packers in this matchup here. They are turning the ball over quite a bit, they being the Cowboys, and we've done a pretty good job protecting the football. Jordan Love, guys, he's off to a good start. Yep. This is a really good start for Jordan Love. His accuracy looks way better. He looks way more comfortable it's a little too comfortable in the pocket against Cleveland, I believe. He took some of those sacks. I'm like, we got some Weibos on him, man. That dude's just standing in there. Just he wasn't afraid to get hit. Yeah, I'm like, but get the hell out of there. I couldn't.
He's closing in.
Wasn't that what Rashid said to him on one
Run,
point?
Jordan. He got beat inside, and Myles Garrett even said, he goes, man, I dusted him on the inside. And Rashid just turns as he's trying to chase down Myles Garrett. Run, Jordan.
Run, Jordan. If you guys have not seen that, just go to X and type in Run Jordan. It'll probably pop up. It is hilarious. And again, it's another reason why I'm like, I don't understand how people think that Rashid is just like a top 5 tackle. He's never been. He's always been a great pass blocker.
Yeah.
But that was a beautiful thing about Bakhtiari. That guy could get out there and run block too, man. But all-time great, all-time great. J. Cole said he laughed his butt off, and it was hilarious. It's hard to be mad at that. I think our buddy Aaron Rodgers, not the Aaron Rodgers, but our Aaron Rodgers sent that to me in a DM. I laughed so hard, man. Run, Jordan.
It's hilarious.
All right, guys, we're out. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Like I said, 6:30 p.m. Central for PTA Live. Let us know in the comments what you think. If this is your first time tuning in tonight or you're watching this video back later, thank you for hanging out with us. Make sure you hit subscribe and click that bell icon so you're notified when we go live. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good night.
There we go.
Bye, guys.